Well, I'd like to start out this with a quote from Meher Baba. He said, craving, craving creates delusion. And so what we're going to be talking about today is making calculations. And he says, craving creates delusion and prevents right perception. Now, can you make good calculations without good perception? Like a lot of the traders and the interviewers that I listen to talk about these these terrible psychological problems that traders have. And so did Mark Douglas. He was one of them that talked about it. One of them was, like, let's say, fear of missing out, and so on. And they talk about these anxiety, performance anxiety, and so on. And or some people just cling to a hope. They have an emotion, and they won't sell a losing trade because they're clinging to this hope about it. And I never hear any of these traders talk about high cortisol except for one who was a former trader who became a neurologist and wrote a book called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. And he said that the symptoms of high cortisol are basically a complete lack of ability to function. There was a trader I was listening to sharing about some trade he did one morning, and he said that he was shaking. He was physically shaking, but he decided, okay, I can handle this and I'll do the trade, and he did. He made money. There's another story I heard about a trader who dropped dead on the trading floor at the age of 32 from a heart attack. It's high cortisol. And people they can't recognize the symptoms of high cortisol. And they're the symptoms that Mark Douglas talks about. But he never gave the remedy, which is, for one thing, ashwagandha, and for another, there are products that combine other things like I don't know, because all I take is ashwagandha for it. And also, many traders, when they tell about their bad experiences, they're obviously expressing symptoms of a magnesium deficiency. And also, you need energy to trade, so you have to have the right diet, because you have to trading takes energy. It uses up energy. And so if you're having an energy problem, you can't trade until you handle the problem. You have to have the energy first. You have to get well physically first before you get well financially. So that, that being said, see, there are these things like, I was asking myself, like, why do I talk to you? Because I'm not. The reason I talk to you is because I feel a sense of responsibility when I know something that somebody else doesn't know and they're suffering. And this sense of responsibility, I don't think everybody has it. I don't think everybody feels responsible the way I do. And a lot of times it's just because they, you know, they're beaten down. They're low on energy, you know, or just they're like maybe starved for love or whatever, you know, whatever it is, they have to have something for them before they can feel their sense of responsibility in life. You know, and also a lot of people don't feel a sense of responsibility because they don't feel like they've solved their problems. And I feel like I've solved my problems, you know, so I feel responsible for, you know, giving other people the benefit of the answers that I came into. Like one of them was ashwagandha. And a lot of times the remedies for the, you know, for life's complex problems are really very simple. You know, like in there was a Jean-Paul Sartre wrote a book about the emotions, and it was a theory of emotions, and he was saying that emotions are a kind of magical behavior. And this is what Baba is talking about when he says craving creates delusion. You know, we have a lot of lessons on virtual realities. That's what delusion is. It's the virtual realities that you create without realizing that you've created them. They seem like, well, for example, somebody comes, like Greg or I will come downstairs and we'll be looking at the chart array and we'll say, you know, I think the market's going up today. You can't predict the stock market. So that was a big discovery that I made. And when I tell people, when I say those words, you can't predict the stock market, everybody agrees. You know, everybody agrees. I don't have to prove anything to them by saying it's random or whatever. It's not random, it's manipulated. But that doesn't mean you can predict it. What you can do is you can see what it's likely the manipulators are doing. And that's what Mark Douglas was driving at, really, when he was talking about computing probabilities. And that's what this movie is about. It's about, making calculations. And what Baba says here is, cravings have a tendency to pervert the function of critical reason. And another way to put, see, he lived in a different era, okay? We don't talk about critical reason anymore. What we talk about is the computation of probabilities. What will probably happen? I mean, if you just read a news article in Yahoo, they're not pretending to exercise their critical reason facilities. They're saying, well, what will probably happen in 2024? They're computing probabilities. There was one article, 4 things Biden got right and 3 that he got wrong or that went wrong during his presidency. And unfortunately, the things that went wrong during his presidency seem to me like nothing anybody could do anything about. So, let's change this sentence. Cravings have a tendency to pervert the functioning of probability computation. And that's what where people get into trouble. They mix wishful thinking in with their probability computation because they can't perceive what's actually out there, because what's out there is not what they're craving. And you know, some people crave things that they absolutely won't give themselves. And it is not because they're sabotaging themselves. It's because what they're craving causes them to create a virtual reality about what is going to happen. You know, when you do a trade, you're making a very long series of choices. First, there's the choice to put in the order. Then there's the choice not to cancel it. And you can make the choice not to cancel it a lot faster than you can make the choice to put in the order. And that's why I trade with stop-loss orders, because I can put a stop-loss order in to buy something and leave it there for 10 minutes. And this was something that Pradep recommended, the Indian trader. You know, he said, you know, just enter with a stop. If you're afraid the thing's going to explode past where you're, and you'll be trying. This happened the other day because I didn't have an order in, and so, and I went and it hadn't taken off. I mean, it was sitting there, you know, and I pressed the button to put the order in. Boom! It went, and the order appeared on the screen, and the price went right through it. And it was a stop-loss order, and it didn't trigger because the stop-loss order never went through to the the exchange. So, or to any place where it would trigger when the price went past it. Probably the price was already past it and my graphics were just slow. That's probably what happened. They are. I mean, that I know. Computer graphics never tell you what's actually happening. They tell you what happened that generated the computer graphic. So all the things that I'm saying are things that I know that don't have anything to do with me being a brilliant trader. They're just facts that I know and that I feel I should share. You know, and you can do what you want with them. You will probably do different things with them than I've done. Maybe not. So every time, you know, there's any movement in the price of your stock that you've bought, you have a choice to make whether to sell it or keep it. Like, you know, you're actually making those choices with every tick. And what some people do, and what I do, is I make the choice candle by candle. And then I decide what chart. Like I trade from a 15-tick chart when I'm in a trade. I use a 1 minute to evaluate, and also to I sometimes draw my grid where that I'm gonna use to insert my order. I draw a grid, and then I put an order inside the grid near the top of the grid, and so that when the price exits the grid, it will take the order. And I use these grids to group candles. So the grid is always drawn from, from some candles that are at the bottom, or one candle that's at the bottom, to some candles that line up in the middle. And I use a Fibonacci retracement to do this. And where are my fibs? Let me show you something. Here's a prop. Okay, that's a Fibonacci spiral, and this is the inside of the Fibonacci spiral. And you can actually put these things, I've seen it illustrated. I've never really traded off a Fibonacci spiral, but I've seen people who do, and they put one of those things on the chart, and every time the price hits a line, it changes. Like it reverses direction or accelerates in the same direction, whatever. And see, that's the thing about these things. They don't actually predict. Like, I use flat price lines, and at a price line, the price will do one of three things. It will touch it and bounce off it. It will mess around, up and down through the price line for half an hour or 30 seconds, which can feel like half an hour. Or it really can, when you're on a hot stove. Or it can just blast through it. But usually it does something at each one of those lines. So okay, this is a Fibonacci fan, and you can draw Fibonacci fans on charts and learn all kinds of things from those. And I sent out a photo at one point of palmettos, and those are Fibonacci fans too. And so I group candles, but I don't really. I watch every little movement as it's approaching my order, and then I have to decide whether to cancel the order. So this is another decision. And there's this trader, Tom Hogarth. He was saying that you should put around 10% of your energy into analyzing the market and 90% into analyzing your decision process. And what I do is I put more like 1,000% into analyzing my decision process. Let me tell you a little story. There was a study done, and I heard about the study in one of the Market Wizards books. I can't remember which one. And this trader was talking about it. What they did was they went into one of these, like a hedge fund that had 200 traders. And so they went into this hedge fund, and they polled the traders, and they asked them, what do you trade off? What do you use for indicators? And so the one trader would say, well, I use triangles, and another said, I use flags, and another would say, well, I use Fibonacci retracements, and another would say, I use the VWAP, and they went on like that, on and on. I use, very simple, I just use, what are those things, moving averages, right? Everybody uses moving averages, so not a lot of them used moving averages. Now, my friend Barb has a friend who was a trader on the floor of the CBOE. She worked there for, from the time she got out of school till the time she retired, presumably when she was 55. She had the same job, trading on the floor of the CBOE. And the question is, and these traders, some of them work there at the same place for life. And others are like there 10 years, 15 years, Well, the trader who was talking about this study took the things that they used, and he was an algo trader, and he did a lot of back testing. So he back tested all these things, VWAPs, triangles, and all these various things. And what he found was that none of them had anything that you could write an algo to trade from. They basically had no predictive value. So then how did these traders use these for 15 or 35 years and make money with them? And they were all different. There wasn't one indicator they all used and made money. They had their own things they did. And a lot of them don't really talk to the other traders that much, not about trading anyway. They probably tell some really filthy jokes, but and so and the answer is, it's their decision-making process that makes them money. It is the quality of their decision-making process. And so what you might say is indicators that you may use. And, I don't use the Fibonacci retracement as an indicator. I use it as a cage in which to function so that I can compare each candle and decide where the manipulators are going to take it up to God knows where. And of course that has nothing, however far it goes and so on, that has nothing whatsoever to do with the Fibonacci retracement that I'm using. It has nothing whatsoever. It is all based on the action of the market, which I am watching like a hawk, and which I have already drawn targets on. Because you can't draw, I trade options on expiration day, and you can't draw targets on options on expiration day or any other day. Okay? And there's when you load an option chart, the default on the chart has this mathematical line, and it's something like the real value of the option or the true value of the option, and it is an absolute virtual reality. There is no such thing as one. Okay, it's something somebody thought up and they put on the chart. And if you look at the price action of the option, it has nothing whatsoever to do with that line. So what I did was I changed the setting on the chart so that it doesn't show studies. And so now my option charts look normal size, because the charts were distorting the option price action to make room for this line that was up here somewhere wandering around. Because the people, look, like when you see, another thing that you need to learn is, like, let's say you call up a brokerage house or a trading firm or something, and you ask them about stock stuff, and they'll tell you all this stuff. You have to remember, they're idiots. That's why they're working there. It's the same thing as going to your doctor and asking him what's good for you to eat. He will tell you things that you should avoid. There's something that my favorite dietary guy is a guy named Eric Berg, and who has like 20 million followers on YouTube, by the way. and he he was talking about the standard rap that doctors give when they say, what is the unhealthiest thing you can eat? The worst thing for you: red meat, fatty red meat. And that's a crock. Red meat is the ultimate repair food. I once got a book, it was years ago. The book was $50, and I bought like 10 of them because I had this gigantic organization, and we had centers in like 5 cities, and I sent the books to the centers so people could read them. And his main point was that if you don't eat red meat, you can never get your zinc up. And if you don't get your zinc up, you're not going to process vitamin A correctly, and so your eyesight's going to go. And at the time, I was living in the Keys, and my eyesight was going. I was wearing sunglasses in the house. And I just went out and bought myself a steak when I read that book. And like 2 or 3 days of eating steak, and my vision went back to normal, and I have never worn sunglasses again, because you need to get the sun in your eyes. That's, the sun is a source of nourishment. So, there's a lot of these things like I'm really passionate about, and I don't mean to have an effect of like trying to force anybody to do anything, but I have a lot of experience. See, the thing is, most of the things I learned from experience. Okay, as another example, in trading, take losses. I think when people start trading, the first thing they should do is lose money. The second thing they should do is create a risk management system so they lose less money. And then they should practice with their risk management system and see how they can tweak it so it's so that it's probably not going to interfere with being in a good trade, but that they will lose a bare minimum if they're not in a good trade. Oh, that's another thing Pradep said. He said some trades are bargains. With some trades, it's just going to go. And so you can put your stop right there. And if it doesn't do that, the trade's no good. Because it's one of those trades that has to just, boom, just go. So if you do this by this method, like if you study trading by this method and lose money, what you're going to actually be working on is your decision-making process, because nobody wants to lose money. So of course you're going to try to do good entries so that, and enter something that's going to go up at least a little bit, so you can practice your risk management. And gradually you're going to watch yourself making your incremental choices as you trade this, and one example is, see, I trade options on expiration day because they move a lot, and that means that I can learn really fast, because I can think fast enough to trade an option like that, and I can move my stop fast enough to protect myself from losses, generally speaking, and the stop goes in when my order goes in. So I always have a stop in. See, I never get into a trade and then put in a stop. If I get into a trade without a stop, I immediately press the flatten button. And that's another thing. I trade with a gaming mouse that has 8 programmable buttons in addition to the left and right click. And so I can have a flatten button, and if I don't like the trade, or if I did something wrong, like, it may be a great trade, but I don't have a stop. And of course I could just put in a stop, and I've done that sometimes. But really what I should do, if I want to train myself to set my template properly before I trade, and I've been doing better with that. I've been checking it and setting it properly. And this is all part of the decision-making process. And if I want to do that properly, if I don't do it properly, I probably should flatten the trade. To just take a loss and learn the lesson. If you don't want to take losses, set your template. I am very strict with myself, but where I am not strict is I do not force myself to trade. I don't force myself to sit in front of the computer. I do what I want to do every day, and I also take care of my health throughout the day. And if I will not sacrifice my health to make money, that is the way you lose in life. It's a losing approach to life. You need to put your health first. And also, maybe, put having fun first. So, but honestly, Greg and I were talking about this today, and Greg was saying that he has fun when he's trading. So, and I said, well, you have fun when you're out he's doing a project out in the yard. And he said, I have fun there, but I have more fun when I'm trading. I finally made a convert out of him. So, I don't know what I've left out of this movie, but the point is that what you have to know about yourself is that every day, all day, you are working on your decision-making process. And that is true whether you know it or not. And it's better to know it, and intend to be working on your decision-making process. And then, the way let's say if you're using an indicator, the way you set it, that's a decision. And so when you look at, my indicator I don't like the way it's working so well today, Or when I use my fibs, like I put them in and then I start thinking, well, if this fib is too wide, this can come back and stop me out at a place where I would have my stop. See, because I start my stop at 60 cents, but I move it up instantly. So, and usually to one of the lines in the fib. So if the fib's too wide, it'll be 60 cents away from it. So I can't do that. So I have to just keep modifying the way I make decisions. One good way to do this, by the way, and this is something Pradep recommends, is lie in bed or under a tree with your eyes closed and go over the way you trade mentally without any computer anywhere near you. Well, off I go.